Hi, this is Ed again in San Diego, and you're on Global TV Talk Show along with Mark Colo in St. George, Utah, and Eve Nasby in the LA area. Welcome again to Global TV. Eve, you were just talking with us off camera about Band of Hands and how you're an employer of record, basically. Is that what you do?
Yeah, it is. It's great to be here. Thanks again for having us. So we definitely take on America's small businesses and just help them thrive. And what we do is we take their employees and we make them our own. And we do that for a super low cost. We take care of all the HR, all the legal, anything that has to do with employment, we take care of. From recruiting, we've got job boards to onboarding and offboarding. We even help coach the managers to be better managers. And it's all for $12 a week per person. You just can't beat it. There's no nickel and diming. Literally, that's it. That's the only cost. So it's very exciting. We love to help our small business friends out there in the US.
Thank you. So, how many employees do you have now?
Hundreds, and they're growing by the day. We've got a company that's signing up that's going to give us another 40 and then another 20. And yeah, so we work with nonprofits and for-profits here in the US in most of the states, and we're looking to open up in all 50. We just need more opportunities with great clients who are in those states that we're not in so we can serve them.
Yeah, so let me ask you, are you using robots? Are you using AI to manage all this?
We are a technology company at our very core, but nobody speaks with robots. You have a phone, you've got a chat, and you're talking to a live human. But all of the processing, that's done with our AI, our technology. So we process all of the payroll. That's done through technology, but everything else, you have a one-on-one human interaction, which people love.
That's great. Okay, we're joined here with Tineke Rensen. Hi, welcome back.
Hey, hello. It's a long
Welcome.
time to see, Ed.
I know, before your excursions and your
Yeah,
illness, but you look great and sound great.
thank you. Yeah, I've done a lot of traveling. True. Since August, I've hardly been at home. Yeah, well, since July actually. So yeah, I have been traveling a lot.
Uh-huh. Well, that's probably what got you sick. But
Uh, uh, I think I know the reason that did get me sick, but that's a holistic point of view.
yeah, okay. So I want you to meet Eve Nasby. She
Hi,
owns a company
Nice to
called
meet you.
Band of Hands. We were just talking about it. And Mark Colo, you've met before. This is Tineke
of course.
Rensen.
Hi,
Hi,
pleased to see you again,
good to
Mark.
be with you.
And we're going to be joined here by Dr. David Weiss in just a second. Hi, David.
Hi, how are you?
Good. Welcome. I want to introduce you briefly here. We are recording. Mark Colo is the guy with all the hair, as you can see. Uh, and he's in Utah, St. George, Utah. And Eve Nasby is in the LA area. Eve owns a company called Band of Hands, which is an outsourced employment of record kind of thing, but she'll get into it better than me. And from Netherlands is Tineke Rensen, who's an entrepreneur, and she's actually she can do a lot better thing than I can about herself. But let me just briefly say that she has a unique perspective as a woman in business and grown up in a large family of men. And she's always had to fight for herself, and she's become super strong and almost an Olympian in the world of business, and actually an athlete as well. So Tineke, meet David Weiss, Dr. David Weiss.
Hi, pleased
Hi,
to meet you.
everyone. Nice to meet you.
So David's going to talk in about 5 minutes or so from now for about 15 minutes with us about himself and his enterprise, and the open forum as well. Um, are you going to show the clearer method, the slide, or are you going to do something else?
I was thinking I could show you the clear method. Let's see if this pops up.
Okay,
I'm
right
looking
now the
to,
screen is black. So Tineke,
that's not
why don't
working.
you just do about 2 minutes here before we get
Yes.
going about She Credit and or something about yourself.
Okay, so thank you so much for your introduction. And what I would love to add is that after that tough journey and being a tough woman, I transitioned to being more soft, being more feminine. So I traveled from a hardcore masculine businesswoman to a now feminine businesswoman, and really advocating for businesswomen to scale and build businesses. And therefore, I've discovered it is important to have the masculine skills, such as focus, such as determination, such as strategy, goal-oriented, financial insight, because those are the skills that make a successful business if you determine success from a masculine point of view. Scale, money, size. Feminine traits such as harmony, collaboration, intuition, making impact. That's the definition of success for the woman, making impact, harmonizing. And I think both are equally as important, but for a lot of women, the masculine traits are lacking, and that's what I help them with, and balance and harmonize the two so they can build that impactful and successful business they want. Now with She Credit is a non-profit organization, and I'm the president in my country, in the Netherlands. We finance business women who have scaling ambition and can't find money, because for women it's a lot more difficult to find growth capital, because it's the capital, the financial industry is based on stats, on numbers, and on distrust. And women are very loyal people. I don't want to disqualify men, not at all. I always have to be careful that I don't get go into the wrong side. But it's statistically proven that it's more difficult for women to get finance. In our country, it's 3% of the whole capital. Now there is less women asking for finance. There are less women building and scaling businesses, but still they don't have the networks. They have less access to finance. They don't speak the language. That they lack often knowledge. But once they have that, then they are a much better and risk-freer investment than, and all of this is researched, scientifically researched, than men. Apparently, there's a double ROI if you invest in a woman-led business compared to if you invest in a man-led business, because women are more risk-averse traditionally. So yeah, it's important for me. We are now in the process of collecting money of our members, because we have a woman who is building an Italian restaurant and she wants to scale. She needs a new kitchen and she needs 30,000 euro. You can't go to a bank to get 30,000 euro. They let you come and talk, but they're not going to help you because it costs them too much. So you know, we do this for them. We're a female-friendly organization. You can only ask money if you are the owner. So you have 51% of the shares. Yeah, all my time is dedicated to helping women scaling and growing, and especially aligning and harmonizing the two, the masculine and the feminine. And yeah, therefore I organize a retreat in Bali in March. It's new. It's brand new, where I'll combine my personal masculine and feminine skills as well. It's challenging. I've never I do a lot in personal Reiki healing and energy healing, but I'm now going to do this with groups of people. So that's me stepping up as well and scaling myself as well. So yeah, that's a bit about me. Thank you all for listening. Thank you, Ed.
This is super cool. So, Eve, do you want to comment on this as an entrepreneur?
Oh, I think she's doing a fantastic work. I agree. There's different organizations in the Southern California area where we are that do the same thing, but not enough. And there's definitely a difference. I was in a seminar one time, they talked about blue and pink, and blue is the way that men run businesses, pink is the way that women run businesses, and you thrive for purple. And that's the combination of those two. And everything that you just said is true. And I think that you've got a learning curve for women in business, and that is community, and being involved in a community where women, support each other for the most part is a great thing. And then you get to thrive and help them thrive with all the knowledge that you have. So yeah, spot on. I'm glad you're doing it.
So once again, Eve is the owner of this business that is an employer of record, and she'll help a small business people get rid of the tasks.
Beautiful.
Right, Eve?
Yeah. And just for clarity, I'm not the owner, I'm the president. So we all are shareholders. The CEO, Aziz Badra, is the one that started it all, and it's his great idea. But yeah, 98% of the businesses, you guys, in the United States are small businesses. And they struggle with finding people. They struggle with keeping up with the laws. They struggle with, getting sued, wage and hour lawsuits, PAGA lawsuits, all the stuff that's indicative to the United States, especially California, which is the most litigious state in the United States. And so that's what we do. We take all of that headache off of the small business owner so they can focus on growing, and they can focus on getting more people in the door. And so that's what we do in a nutshell. It's a lot of fun.
Okay, in just about 3 minutes, Dr. David Weiss will take over here. But Mark Colo and I are friends. He has Parkinson's for many years and has the guts to get up and tell people that he's normal. Wait. and very productive. He's written 2 books. He's been a TEDx speaker, and he's been my partner on medical TV talk show for a few years now. We've interviewed neuro research scientists, including the president of the National Stem Cell Foundation, Dr. Paula Grisanti, and Jana Stoudemire, who is an executive with this space launch company called Axiom Space, and they're going to build the new space station in which will be medical research in a zero gravity environment. Mark, I've talked too much about you.
No, yeah, you did a great job. I don't have to say anything now.
No, I'm practiced. Okay, so we're going to now go to Dr. David Weiss, who's in Toronto, I think. And are you in Toronto today?
I'm in Toronto today, yes.
Yes. Okay,
absolutely.
so Dr. David's been a guest many times, and he's a psychologist and a business executive. Why don't you self-intro better than I can do that?
Well, first of all, it's a pleasure to be here, and thank you for sharing the background and some of the innovative work you're doing. It's extremely important to build, communities that support each other, and there are many possible communities that could be formed, and the more the group could consolidate their issues, their concerns, places where they're unfairly disadvantaged, and galvanize the group to do something is extremely important. So it's wonderful work. My work is in the area of innovation and leadership, and I have written a lot about that. Probably the most popular book was the one, Innovative Intelligence, which went viral and it's translated in multiple languages. But during COVID, what occurred was there was just a tremendous amount of pulling away from convening. So I would facilitate sessions in large groups and small groups, and everything stopped because of COVID. No one was convening. And what happened organizationally, at least in my consulting firm, that we found was that in the absence of collective groups coming together to work on problem solving, to work on leadership development, we found that a number of organizations started focusing on individual development. And as a result, what emerged was, for those who are skilled in coaching, there was a massive growth in the ability to work one-on-one virtually in a coaching environment. And so that became extremely important. But not only for someone like me, it's a PCC, it's a professional coaching certification through the ICF, the International Coaching Federation. So we have 5 coaches and we're very busy in that area. What we also found was that leaders in organizations were working remotely with people and they didn't know how to coach. And they didn't coach the same way I was coaching. I would be coaching in a way where I would be sharing with them and working maybe for an hour at a time. And it would be scheduled, it would be organized. And what we found was that the leaders really were having coaching chats in 10 to 15 minutes, moments that would ultimately be on an as needed basis when things would occur. And they needed something. So what I built was a model called Clear Coaching and started teaching it to leaders virtually around the world. And it grew rapidly because there was such a great need during COVID for leaders to know how to work, not only in person, but in the context remotely and to chat and to get to the point quickly and to know how to do that effectively. So, Ed asked me to share a little bit about this thing and how it actually looks. And it is an important point. So, for example, let's see if I bring up the screen. No, it's not working today. So I'm going to do it the other way. And I'll share a screen with you, which is this was made into an infographic. It's always kind of fun. I post on LinkedIn daily infographics, and it's kind of fun when one of your own models gets made into an infographic. So CLEAR is actually 5 different words. It stands for context. And what I would share with the leaders is that they really need to understand the context within the environment that people are dealing with. And it's not just the work context, but it also is the personal context. Certainly during COVID, everybody had a different personal context. Some people were more privileged, some people were less, some people were living in high rises and concerned about taking elevators. Others had the good fortune of having space, and therefore they didn't experience that closed in entity. But we also found psychological safety is becoming a dominant theme as well. And so, do people feel comfortable speaking up when they have something to say? And in the coaching environment, will they actually share with you what they're worried about or what they're concerned about? Or how will they respond to you if they don't feel safe, if you want to bring something up with them? So appreciation of context is extremely important. And what we end up thinking about in that one is something which is extremely important. It's, we have to understand that the context is not subjective, that the context actually is going to be personalized, and they need to appreciate that. But when the individual starts the coaching, they need to go into a listening mode. And I tend to look at coaching as really, to simplify it, as happening through 1 or 2 events. Either the individual who is being coached initiates the conversation, or the person who is doing the coaching is actually wanting to talk about something. I noticed something that happened between you and another individual. I noticed you're checking out. That might be something that a leader might bring up. So the challenge is for both situations to go into a listening mode right away. Leaders often, if they're especially bringing up the topic, might, go into an action planning stage much too fast, instead of asking, tell me more about that. And going into a listening mode, even when they initiate, and certainly when someone else is initiating the conversation, to go into a listening mode as well, and ask that great question: what's on your mind? What are you thinking about? What would you like to talk about? And then once the person says that, instead of making assumptions, where to help. It's to ask, how can I help? And the common error is just not letting the employee define the issue. So I tell leaders that this is not the moment to over control. This is the moment to really give ownership, to transfer that empowerment to the individual, and see if that opportunity will give that individual a chance to come up with answers that they feel they want to commit to themselves, which will change the commitment and actually usually adhere and be much more meaningful for that person. So once you listen to the individual, then comes the E of clear, and that's really where you have to spend time being empathic. And when you're empathic, it's not just I'm going to listen to you and say, oh, I really care about you, but it's actually doing deep questionings. And what I'm thinking about there is what questions? It's questions that would ultimately be things like if an individual says, you know, I'm feeling really exhausted. Instead of saying, well, you know, what can we do about that? I'd much rather you stay in the moment, stay in one place and go deeper and say, what does exhausted mean to you? The person says, I'm upset about that. Emotions, when someone communicates it. You know, a what question is wonderful. What does upset mean to you? Or a metaphor where they give an image. I feel like I'm drowning. You know, what does drowning mean to you? And ask questions to surface patterns so that the person articulates a little bit more. And that process of articulation actually brings insight for the individual. And so the mistake is not asking open-ended questions, and in particular, what questions becomes really very valuable. And then when we get to action, you know, this is, you remember, I got 15 minutes. So understand that context. I tend to think that the listening phase takes about 4 minutes. Ask at least 3 questions. The empathy is the bulk of it, maybe 7 more minutes. And then action is about another 4 minutes. So that's our total of 15 that we might have for a typical leaders coaching session. The mistake that's often made in the action phase is that leaders are used to, you know, being bold and making, you know, what are we going to do over the next 3 months? What are we going to do over the next 6 months? Coaching is emotional. And in this emotional space, what we need is leaders to ask for small steps. What's one small thing you can do to start the process of moving this forward? And that process allows the individual to take on something which is doable. And, you know, it's like during COVID, people were sitting on couches and they weren't getting up. And you might say to that person, just stand up. And by virtue of standing up, they generated their own self-momentum to do the next step. So leaders need to start asking for small steps. Don't go for the big steps. Go for, get movement. Empower the individual, get the individual to take ownership and what might they want to do. And in fact, the mistake is expecting elaborate and fast changes. And that would ultimately be something that it's just inconsistent with the way these people are struggling with these issues. These issues are not just now. It took a long time to get to this point and to talk to you about it as the leader. So clearly we need to have some more conversation and go slow. Slow is fast in coaching. Slow it down and identify takeaways. You know, what'd you get out of this conversation? But throughout, I want the individual leader to demonstrate respect. And so that's how we spell the word clear. And what I mean by respect is clearly to honor the individual, empower the individual, let them own it. But one thing that even professional coaches, when I help other coaches, there is not enough acknowledgement going on where the leader needs to authentically acknowledge the individual for, you know, focusing on the topic. I really appreciate how you are giving this that much attention. I just want to acknowledge that I know this is really important to you. You know, very, you know, in the moment, not like you're grandiose, but something really specific that has integrity is demonstration of respect. But here's the other one, and that is that to demonstrate respect in coaching, leaders need to turn off their incredible pattern of moving to an advice mode. And they need to stop giving advice. And if they feel they must, they actually have to go into a process which I would suggest they ask permission. Would it be okay for me to suggest an idea? We call it POP. You know, permission, then give the option, and then partner with the person. Don't give the advice in a way that sounds like I'm the authority, I'm telling you what to do, but rather give it in a way that does not disempower, that still allows the individual to feel the ownership of what they choose to do, that it's their choice. And you were just thinking with them out loud, but they really own it. And the way that you would make a mistake is disempowering the employee by telling and not asking. So clear becomes a method that we were finding that we could teach in a 2-hour virtual learning session with groups of 20 people. And they would be ultimately experimenting, talking to each other, understanding how to understand the context, apply the listening, empathy, and action in a 15-minute conversation, and demonstrating that respect throughout as a method to build that environment that increases the chances that the leader will empower that employee and they'll be able to work in a remote environment successfully. So this has been quite exciting. It's always cool when you have an infographic that was done in this context. And it's made a difference for a lot of organizations. It's very practical. This is not, changing the world. It's very practical in the moment, dealing with a pain point. And the pain point was leaders really did not know how to engage, certainly in a virtual environment. But last point, what we found is now that people are coming back during COVID, it's becoming even more important because they need to actually talk to people in a different way. People built a different understanding and expectation when they were working remotely, that now they're expecting the relationship to have characteristics that would be in an in-person environment where the leader would be able to demonstrate similar coaching. So this perspective seems to be still alive and well, and hopefully contributing a lot of value within organizations.
David, thank you. I have to tell you that in my personal life, I have made communication mistakes, and reviewing this, particularly the R, respect, and consequences for not doing that right, has cost me personally in personal relationships where I'm a Mr. Know-it-all, according to that person who happens to be in the next room. So I'm being really honest here. So, okay, Tineke, I know you want to speak.
just as one point on that, Ed, it's not an issue of change your personality. I mean, if you want to be someone who is, knows what you want, it's actually building skills and changing your habits in that environment, because we're not going to rewire an individual. But if we can build in a couple of methodologies that gets people to interrupt their normal pattern of behavior to do something that's different and maybe hold back on that advice. And just simple rule, if you want to say something, can you form it in the form of a question rather than in the form of a statement? Just one thing, put it out as a statement. And if I could buy a second idea, if you're in a group and you really want to say something, but you're the authority in the room, instead of talking first, talk last. And by talking last, you hear what everybody else is saying. And then you'd have the opportunity to build on it rather than being the first, which constrains the innovative thought. So go last, ask questions, say your point last, and keep it simple. 1 or 2 points to remember, and the chances are some habits can change.
Thank you. Dr. David Weiss, do you have a few more minutes for us?
Yeah, I do. I can stay on the phone. It'll be a pleasure.
Okay, Tineke.
Well, now I'm supposed to go first. I'm supposed to go last. What struck me is, and thank you for this beautiful model, David. What struck me is that what I see is that the traditional leadership, which is about solving problems, knowing it all, which is masculine, coming with the solution, going into action mode immediately, you now added the listening, the compassion, the acknowledging, which is feminine. So I see the two dancing very beautifully here together. And I think this is a transition that leadership is going through at the moment. Well, not at the moment. It started, especially in Western countries, thank God. And your model demonstrates this beautifully, that it's not about you need to have all the solutions as a leader. No, you need to have patience with your employees. You need to be in their world, and they are perfectly capable of coming up with the solutions because they're adults, they're grown-ups. So I love it. Thank you.
Well, thank you for that. And totally agree with you. And one thing that calms leaders down is I would say to them, in coaching, I want you to turn off giving advice. But that doesn't mean you can never give advice, you know, because if you say never, then people will have a hard time. But if you say in this space, don't disempower.
Yeah, you add the asking permission to give advice, and I like that.
Absolutely. Right.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. That's great.
Eve?
No, I think it was spectacular and spot on. One of the things, the biggest challenges we face here, and I don't know, it might be global, but one of the biggest challenges we face in the United States is identifying talent. We don't know where millions of people have gone. We don't know if they're still on that couch, that proverbial couch, and they haven't gotten up. But everybody from, you know, McDonald's to Deloitte are wondering where people have gone. And what we know for a fact is that people don't leave companies, they leave bosses. They leave their leadership. And what you've just outlined, David, is spectacular. If we can get this type of clear communication into the leadership in the US, small businesses, medium-sized businesses, large businesses, it doesn't matter. I think the retention would increase significantly within organizations all over the US. And I think that turnover would dramatically decrease. So I think what you said is absolutely on point. And what I love about it is it's simple. I don't have to read your book, which I will read. I wrote it down. I was taking notes. I want to read your book. And I also know that I can take exactly what you've just said in 12 minutes to my organization today and be a better leader. That I appreciate. So thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Mark?
Yeah, this is great conversation. I'm enjoying all of it. Tineke, hats off to you because you're so flexible. You can go from one. I don't know if it's politically correct to say one sex to the other. I don't know. Nowadays it's you know, I'm one to open my mouth wide and put my foot right down it because I can't keep up with all this political correctness and the right terminology and no, you can't say that. My youngest daughter is an expert at that. I can't even speak when I'm in her presence because I try and say something and she, no, Dad, that's not correct. You have to say it this way. You got to do it this way. And she's only 22 years old. I mean, I'm 66, yeah, I think it was 66 last time I checked. But my, and I love acronyms as well. I think acronyms are great. So David, I enjoyed a few of those acronyms. But my favorite is adaptability proliferates possibility. Adaptability proliferates possibilities. Proliferates is a fancy word for multiplies. So Tineke, what you're doing, you're adapting to your situations and you're multiplying your opportunities. You're getting more opportunities because you're being a little bit more open to seeing it other people's ways. You know, does that make sense? Mm-hmm. My other one I like a lot, my metaphor is step up. And I like that because, you know, you can step down. That doesn't sound positive, does it? Step aside, I'm coming through, you know. There's all kinds of tie-ins to just that two-word metaphor. But the most powerful one is step up. Because you're going up, you know, and anytime you're going up, you're going to have a better viewpoint of what's below, and you're going to have just greater opportunities, I think, when you step up. And it's scary for people to step up. You know, it's scary for them to get out of their comfort zone and do something that's really wild and crazy. But that comes to me naturally now with my situation. I mean, Parkinson's is really an interesting disease in how it makes its inroads into the human body. It changes. I change a little bit every single day just from Parkinson's, and not in a bad way. It's not all bad. There's some really great revelatory type experiences you have when you have these kind of conditions. It's amazing. So I'm thankful in many ways, but there's at least 60 inroads Parkinson's makes into the human body and the human body's function. So it is challenging, but it's also a lot of fun. I enjoy it and have a good time with it. So read my book, Peace with Parkinson's. It's called A Resting Tremor, Not an Earthquake. Right? That's the shock of the diagnosis. And I have one other book called The Noble and Great Ones. And that's about people that did great things, but they sought after nobility first because they recognized if it wasn't noble, could be great, but it might be not be that great. But if it's noble initially, it's always going to turn out great. So that's kind of what the theme of the book is. So I recognize people like Roger Federer, who was a tremendous tennis player, one of the best players ever to pick up a racket. But he goes to more charities and helps more service oriented causes than he is on the court. So I mean, he's out there doing great things. He's noble. In my mind, he's a noble person first, and he's done great things because of his nobility. So anyway.
So Mark, earlier you were telling me before we got on the air that you have a speech. Mark is active in his life with the Mormon Church, and he's been asked to give a speech to the congregation. And so we were discussing different things. I said, why don't you talk about your book, The Noble Great Ones? And then Dr. David shows this slide, which is wonderful. So may I suggest you adapt some of that into your talk, and now you have the problem solved, Mark.
That's a good. Send me that slide. I want to look at that again. I want to have that for back.
I in a little bit I'll send you. A little bit after we close, I will render this thing into public view, and I'll send it to all of you, and you can stop it when that slide comes up and photograph it. Do a screenshot,
and you can take it off of LinkedIn. It's right on under my name.
Right.
It's up there right away. So got a lot of followers, and you're invited to be part of that.
So Dr. David Weiss, thank you very much, and please come back, do this again.
Always a pleasure.
And I've learned so much from you every time we do this, and now having these other people who all have such strong action-oriented lives participate in this makes me feel good.
Well, it's an honor to hear from you. The only person I just heard the introduction was from Eve, and another time I look forward to hearing from all of you. Thank you very much for having me here, and it's been wonderful to chat with you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor.
So Tineke, if we can go back to She Credit, are you looking for people to lend money to, or are you keeping it quiet?
No, we are, but they have to be situated in the Netherlands because we're a Dutch credit union. But there's credit unions in the US. It's huge in the US. It's actually, that's where it was initiated. And it traveled from the US to other countries in the world. And it's, it's a cooperation where entrepreneurs become a member. And one entrepreneur needs money to scale the business or whatever, to buy something, and the others lend the money. And that's how they co-create and co-collaborate. And She Credit does that specifically for women. But yes, we are definitely looking for investors. And it's, investors sounds like, oh, you need to have a lot of money. But with €1,000, you can already participate through She Credit. So yeah, and we're a corporation, so the members, they're the boss. We, the board, we always have to report to them twice annually. So yeah, I love it.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, Eve, do you want to comment on that?
Can I address one thing to Mark?
Yes, of course.
Well, I don't know if you're still there, Mark. What I really love that you said is that leaders need to step up. And then I immediately thought, yeah, and stepping up in the earlier days was being courageous. And I think now it's more about being vulnerable. And that's what the system actually showed as well. It's being vulnerable, it's listening, it's empathy. It's something different. So stepping up has different meanings, I think. So I thank you for raising that, because immediately my mind started racing like, yeah, what is stepping up? What is it? But no, it can be masculine or feminine. It used to be masculine, courageous and hard and tough, but now it's different. Thank you.
And there's a lot of people in the US, if they heard that phrase, they would match it right up with baseball, because there's a saying, so-and-so is stepping up to the plate, right?
Yeah.
So step up is often frequently used with baseball. I love baseball. It's like the great American pastime, you know. Love baseball. I used to love watching Babe Ruth. He's an amazing baseball player. Great person as far as an athlete. But he didn't do a whole lot that was noble. He spent all his time in the bars and got plastered. You know, I mean, I shouldn't say it that way, but that's what he did, you know. He could have done so much more for the youth and for baseball as a whole. But what a great athlete he was. He could put his bat out in the field somewhere, a spot in the field, point his bat where he's going to hit it. He hit it out there. I mean, that's hard for a baseball player to do, no matter how good a hitter you are. So anyway, thanks for that comment, Tineke. I like that.
Okay,
You've,
you're welcome.
Oh, I love it, Tineke. Thank you for all that you're doing to empower women and enable them to thrive in their business. And I think in the US, what we have is a small business association. We've got banks that are willing to loan. You also have folks that are willing to get very specific. And we have, they're not loans, but oh my gosh, I'm totally blanking on the word. But you have the organizations that will give money to small women-owned businesses, microloans and things like that. So grants, that was the word I was looking for. So minority women-owned businesses are eligible to go out and apply for grants. There's millions and millions of dollars out there in the US for women. And to your point, Tineke, a lot of people don't realize that that's out there. They think they've got to bootstrap and do it on their own. So there is this sense of community that women need to tap into, that we're natural communicators. We want to integrate with each other. We just don't know what we don't know. And so I love the fact that when you said women, when they're educated, when they figure it out, they become more powerful and more successful. And I would love to find that statistics where it's a 2 to 1, you know, investing in a woman-owned business brings you twice as much ROI than a male-owned business. That'd be very interesting. I'll end with this, that same seminar that I was in several years ago said that women CEOs are more successful than male CEOs in large businesses, large companies, which I thought was also interesting. And they attributed it to the sense of balance, like our brains. We can know that, you know, laundry's going on in that room and the kids are being fed in this room. And, you know, we have this ability to keep everything connected. And men's brains are like waffles. They have these little compartments. And so that's part of how they attributed the great success. But yeah, no, I appreciate what you're doing.
Thank you so much.
fascinating. So tell us about your Bali thing, Tineke.
My what?
Your Bali, B-A-L-I.
Bali.
Yeah, Bali.
Yeah, it's a retreat. It's what we'll do is I have a lot of experience in the rivers, in the waters, but what many people don't know is water also has a very healing capacity. So I swim, and I noticed, I just come back from Mexico, and here in Holland, I swim in the pool. When I was swimming in the ocean, I felt so much different because you are in nature. So there's a lot of healing powers outdoors. As soon as you open the door, not when you are in a busy street with a lot of beeping horns and traffic and lights and, you know, billboards, but actually in nature. So we'll go to nature, we'll go to energy spots. So those are the places where in the earth you have energy lines, you know, traveling the earth. Some people can feel them, some people can't. But in Bali, in a specific region, the Ubud region, that's where they cross, many important ones. And that's where people sense the most energy. So we'll go and visit these places. But we'll also do massage. We'll have a private chef in our house who cooks Ayurvedic food, which is healthy for our body. We'll do business sessions, you know, masterminding, but together. And it's a small group. It's a private luxury villa with private pools, private gym, everything's there. So it's top notch. It's the first week of March. It's 6 days. I'll be hosting it, and it's just a small intimate group. It's just 6 business women who really want to work on a different level on their business. So not just the hardcore business and the planning, the strategy, but on an energy level. Yeah, we'll combine the two.
Now, recently you were in Morocco, and
yeah, that was last year. Yeah, beginning of the year. Yeah, I traveled so much. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, now that was in the mountains?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it was close to the ocean as well. And last year I stayed a month because I want to escape the winters. We don't have the beautiful weather of Florida. So we have dark winters. It's not always cold, but it's dark. So I spent 1 month in Morocco, and now I'm going to spend like 7-8 weeks in Bali. And just, I just work there. My laptop is my work, so I can do work. That's, the big benefit of COVID. That has made such a huge transition that it's
Right.
fully
Help people
accepted.
run their lives. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much, everyone, for being on Global TV Talk Show. As I said, I'll send you each the program. You can do with it as you wish, and I'm going to blast it around the world a few times.
Beautiful. Thank you, Ed.
Thanks,
Okay.
Ed.
Thank you
Thanks,
for
Ed.
being on the show.
Thanks, you guys.
Ciao.
Thank you
Talk to
so
you
much.
soon.
Bye.
Bye
Thank
bye.
you. See
Thank you
you.
all. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.